All right, so again, I recorded the last session, and if you want to see the last session, you can go to my YouTube channel. I put it in the email. If you're not on the email list, let me know, or I can just send it to you in the text. I would love for you to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as any of the other social media pages that I have. So let's dig in. Lies, labels, limiting beliefs. All right, I'll first ask the question, are you all familiar with what I mean? What are lies, labels, and limiting beliefs? Anyone familiar with the term or?
I'm familiar, but of course I think I would be.
Okay.
But so I can talk about it if you want.
So I'm going to explain it in a couple of terms. If you saw the advertisement promo, I gave a couple things that I wanted to make sure that we cover tonight. One, what are limiting beliefs? The limiting beliefs is what leads to the lies and the labels. What does the Bible say about limiting beliefs? How can we handle and address those lies, labels, and limiting beliefs? So I will address it from a couple different perspectives. So limiting beliefs and lies are really just negative, self-defeating thoughts that you may have consciously or unconsciously. You may or may not be aware that you are having limiting, self-defeating thoughts. So you can then ask the question, well, how do I know if I am experiencing or living through or being held hostage to limiting beliefs and lies and labels? In the email I sent to you all, there was a limiting beliefs self-test. Did anyone happen to take a look at the self-test and look at any of the questions?
Yeah, I did.
So I'm going to read then, just read a few of the questions. Give me a second to pull it up here. And when you hear the questions, you can think about, is this me? All right. Do you ever feel like you don't have enough time to get everything done? Do you believe, you can respond in the chat if you want to, do you believe that you are too old to start something new and exciting? Do you feel like your past failures will negatively influence your future? Do you believe that your past governs your future? Do you ever feel as though your resources are too limited to achieve what you want? Do you easily get discouraged over what seems like a lack of forward progress in your goals? Do you regularly compare yourself to others and judge your success based on others? Social media is horrible for that because that's all we do is get on social media and look and see what other folk are doing. Do you believe that others are responsible for your current life circumstances? And I had just a few more. Do you feel that you don't deserve success? Do you constantly worry about what others will think of you? Do you fail to give yourself the love, compassion, and understanding that you give to others? Do you believe that you can do everything yourself without the help of others? Do you ever feel like you're not smart enough to achieve what you really want? And the last one is, do you constantly wait to start things, hoping to get things just perfect? And again, that's in the email, the whole list. So any of those resonate with you? Y'all can, you can talk or.
Do you regularly compare yourself to others and judge your success based on others? I think I do that at times. I'm going into my next decade, next month, I'd be 40. And so I oftentimes wonder if I'm where I'm supposed to be, wherever that is. And since I've struggled with not being a mom, like I sometimes compare myself in that realm, but as it relates to success, I think I'm okay, but at times I do think, should I be somewhere else? But I just don't know where that is.
Mhm. And all of that then causes you to assign some label or
Right.
some lie,
Right.
or puts your thinking, those negative self-defeating thoughts in your head.
Mhm.
Let me take a minute and describe from a from a biblical standpoint. Miss Peggy says she lost her internet connection, so this really must be something she needs to hear. Um, all right. So from the Bible perspective, what is a limited belief is a lie that we have embraced that holds us back from walking in the fullness of life that God desires for us. I'm going to say that again. A lie, limiting belief is a lie that we have embraced that holds us back from walking in the fullness of life that God desires for us. That is what the limiting belief is, the lie is. Most of the time, it may stem from something that someone has said. It a lot of times will stem from childhood. It will, it may come from something from work. And sometimes it may just come from not knowing who you are, not having a clear understanding of who you are in even this carnal world, but definitely not understanding who you are from a spiritual standpoint. So someone talk to me. Are you feeling or realizing that you may be facing or dealing with limiting beliefs, lies, or labels?
Can you repeat that definition one more time?
Yeah, a lie. So limiting belief is a lie we have embraced that holds us back from walking in the fullness of life that God desires for us. So we first have to understand that God has a life that he has designed for us, and we are to walk fully in that. Sometimes people may not fully understand what that is. They may be still trying to find their purpose, maybe still trying to find direction in their lives. But then some of you, you know what it is that God has already called you to and what you should be doing. But for whatever reason, going back down that list of questions, the self-test, you can sort of see yourself or find yourself. And the first step is identifying what then is the limiting belief that is circling around in my mind, in my thinking, and in my thoughts. Because until you can identify and name it, you can't necessarily put the tools in place to be able to deal with the lies and the limiting beliefs. All right, any thoughts, questions there? I'll give you some more examples of the limiting beliefs and lies. Plus, I have a whole list. So the lies and limiting beliefs come from or show themselves in what we call automatic thoughts. So something terrible happens or something insulting happens, and from that, whatever happens, some automatic thought occurs in your head. So say, for example, I don't know, you made a mistake at work and it was a pretty big mistake. And you made the automatic thought immediately may be, oh gosh, I'm so silly, I'm so dumb, or I didn't do this right, or, people are going to think this way about me, or, I'm not going to, people are going to view me in some way. Whatever that first automatic thought is, how do you deal with that? That can turn into, if you let it rest and you continue to absorb that and make it a part of you, it will continue to develop this label or this lie in your mind and your thinking and become a part of your self-talk. So some of those automatic thoughts include assuming. So assuming the worst in things, or all or nothing, believing that you have to do all or be all or nothing. So you hold yourself to the impossible standard of perfection. And when you fall short of exactly what you thought you were going to do, you somehow, that automatic thought is, oh, I know I can't get things completed, or I know I can't do this, or I know I didn't do my best. The labeling is what the example I just described. Something happens, so then you assign some label to yourself. Overgeneralizing is deciding that negative experiences describe your life completely. So something negative happens, then that must apply to all areas in your life, even if it only happened to you in one area of your life. So they go on and on. You can probably come up with your own catastrophizing. You tell you something that something horrible is going to happen. Some people have that constant worry, that constant anxiety. I know coming through COVID, we probably had some of that constant worry, anxiety, or carefulness or cautiousness. And that can embed itself in our thinking. And sort of immobilize us and paralyze us from moving forward and really hearing, getting clarity on what God is trying to get us or give us to do. So there are so many different other lies, labels, limiting beliefs. But the key is for you to understand and be able to label what might be circling in your own mind and in your own thinking. Does anyone have does that resonate? Is it resonating with anyone? Thoughts?
I do. I have a question, and I'm sorry, I don't see the raise your hand button.
That's okay.
So I guess my question is, so in all of this, how do you deal with reality of what you know, when you're not necessarily having these thoughts, but how do you deal with reality in all of this and knowing what is to be true? So you're not lying to yourself, but you are dealing with reality. So therefore you can't step into what God has called you to do. If that makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense, but in my mind, it makes sense. So I'm just trying to figure out, well, how do I deal with what I know and what my passion is and what I know I've been called to do if I'm facing reality and reality is telling me you cannot do this. There's no way I can do this right now. Now, is that a negative thought or are you dealing with reality?
So I think you said it right there. You said there's no way I can do this right now. Is it really right now? Or is it ever?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I think it's achievable, but I think sometimes, because I'm gonna say me, I think I'm superwoman sometimes. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. But then when it comes down to it, it's like, I have to do this in order to make this reality possible. So then on this hand, you're trying to make reality possible, but in the same token, maybe it's just not happening as fast as I would like to see it happen. Because I'm very impatient. I mean, I just don't have it anymore. As we tend to get a little bit older and things are, well, for me, let me speak for me. As I tend to get a little bit older and things are not happening the way that I think they should happen, it's frustrating. I feel as though it's a setback for me. But then I have to also look at the other side. It's not a setback. You have to set yourself up to move up, to progress, to be better. But I think for me, and maybe it's, I think, well, I'm a believer that everything happens when it's supposed to happen. But I also think, again, maybe that's that negative part. Well, if I had started this sooner, if I had done this when I was 30 versus trying to do this at 51, what could I, and then you go down that rabbit hole, as some say, of thinking, or at least I do. I won't say everybody, I'll just speak for myself. I go down that rabbit hole and say, woulda, coulda, shoulda, and then that is depressing. That is that sinking feeling, and that is feeling like, well, you start thinking about what others have and what others have done and you haven't done. There are tons of things that I wish I would have done, but then on the other hand, it's like, well, then you have to think about I've done more things than a lot of people older than me. Not materialistically, but I've been able to, accomplish some things that I've always set out to accomplish so that I can do what I know I've been called to do. It's just a slow process. Why is it slow? That's probably on me. Maybe I didn't act fast enough. Again, I do believe everything is everything is supposed to be as it's supposed to be. But sometimes I just want to put the rush on me. I mean, that's just me. I mean, I don't have the patience. I think in my older years, I'm not old, but I'm saying, let me say maturing. As I mature, I'm starting to realize that everything is going to happen according to how it's supposed to happen. But again, you cannot, I guess it's the human nature side. I'm always going to think, well, maybe I shouldn't say always, but I have those thoughts all the time, what all, and looking at some of the things that other people have accomplished. I mean, if I was to look at the things that you have accomplished to what I've accomplished, I'm like, wow, I don't even know if I would want to walk in your shoes, but still, it's just a lot of things that you see that, your friends have accomplished, you've done this, and you feel like you're delayed for whatever reason. So is that negative or is it a lie? Probably, because maybe I could have done it, if I had started earlier.
So the lie, so you have named many things in that exchange. A lot of lies, a lot of labels, a lot of comparisons. I mean, a lot of the things we already talked about, you just mentioned. I think, the first thing I would say to you is call me for a coaching session. The second thing I would say is breathe. Just stop a minute and breathe. You have a lot of things swirling around and you have a lot of judgment going on in your head. And the more it swirls, remember our very first definition of limiting beliefs was self-defeating thoughts, negative self-talk. And you just had a lot of those things. I'll just give you quickly my first suggestion is and I was going to say this at the end because we wanted to talk about how do we address the limiting beliefs and the lies and labels and things that we may be dealing with. So I could give you several suggestions. One is, aside from the coaching, is journaling. You need to get all of that out of your head. And then personal visioning. You need to line that up in a vision, because it doesn't mean that you can't do what it is that you feel that you've been called to do. It's just on a timeline. And then you need to not judge yourself for being on the timeline and not judge yourself and give yourself grace and look at all the things that you have accomplished and celebrate that. And then celebrate each step of what you're doing. Like you said, you want to get to this stage, but you got to deal with the reality right now that's still building up and preparing you for this stage. So I'd say some personal visioning, put those things on a timeline. And I think once we write things down and we see them on a timeline and then set those goals for those things, we won't feel so defeated. You won't feel like, oh, I woulda, shoulda, coulda. I've written those things down. mean, some of you know that I had planned this whole visioning thing at the beginning of the year. What you just described is really why we needed to do the visioning. We needed to do the personal visioning, setting the life goals so that you get the stuff out of your head. The Bible plainly tells us to write our vision and make it plain. We got to get that stuff out and get it on paper, and then set some goals, parameters, and accountability around it. Because if you don't, it just keeps swirling in your head and you're just sort of wavering. So to your question, yes, you have in that exchange, you had a lot of lies, labels, limiting beliefs in that. But there are solutions to help you get through, work through the lies, labels, and limiting beliefs. And I wonder, Miss Peggy, would you be willing to share a little bit of your story with Katie? Because as she was talking, I thought about you, in terms of how you thought, you kept asking the questions, is this the right time? You're struggling to get off mute. Do you see your microphone?
Okay.
There you go.
I'm on my phone and I'm usually on my laptop. For some reason, it wouldn't pick up. Sure. I was just, as she was talking, she seemed like a lot of where I was at one time. One thing I want to say about personal visioning is when you have a goal, it's okay if you don't accomplish that goal, but don't give it up. So yeah, that's the one thing I want to say. But let me go back because you wanted me to talk about my feelings. I am a Mary Kay beauty consultant, but I felt like I needed a ministry. And I really struggled. Well, no, I shouldn't say needed. I felt like God was calling me to have a ministry. And I really struggle with, is this what I'm supposed to be doing with my life? I mean, I struggle with that for a while, until I realized that God wants us to reach people in different ways. And then that's when I would say, satisfied with what I was doing was more than a business, that it was a way of touching other people's lives. But I struggle with that, I would say 5 or 6 months or even longer than that. Is this what I should be doing? Maybe I should be doing something else. And I was stuck. As long as I was struggling with, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? I couldn't really move forward.
And do you mind telling her? Because I love ask her what that ISD is in front of her name. Because there was a time when she felt like she wasn't going to make that. So will you tell Katie a little bit of your story on how you did that?
Yes, I am a independent sales director with Mary Kay. And like I said, I did not think that I was going to make that. The first time I set my goal to start, I didn't make the goal. But then a year later, I set my goal and I made the goal. So as of June, I will be a sales director for 1 year. So that's why I was talking about when you set goals, even if you don't accomplish them when you think you should, don't give them up. Keep working toward that goal.
I was so excited when I saw Miss Peggy had made that sales director goal, because we talked about that for a little while. So that was great. So don't give up. You're going to have life is going to happen and things are going to happen.
Can I share one other thing about life happening and things happening? When I made up in my mind that I was going to go on target to become a sales director, I met with my directors. 6 days later, my brother passed away unexpectedly. Now, I could have used that as an excuse to back off, take some time to, I would say, grieve. You know how we always say we need to take time to grieve and kind of get ourselves together. But I made that my goal to move forward, because I felt like that's not what my brother would have wanted me to do. So that almost became my driving force to move forward and not to just sink back like I normally did when something happened and think, I can't do this. This is not for me. This is not the time, and just stop. And that's what I used to do.
Yeah. Taylor, you have your hand raised. You have a question or comment?
Yeah, it's not really a question, it is a comment. Just because if anybody is like me, the minute you hear pick up a journal and write it down, you get tired. I am not a journaler. I don't know. It don't work for me. I done bought every journal. It doesn't matter how cute it is. It doesn't matter what the pen looks like. I can't do it. But when the self-doubt comments come, I know we say let's nix the comparison, but I tell myself, well, they don't have anything you don't have. They're not smarter. They are not more connected. We all have connections some way, somehow. And I think sometimes you have to compare yourself in the opposite way. If this person can make it happen, I can make it happen. If this person doing all the stuff they got going on can make it happen, I can make it happen. And I think that's how I try to shift the thought. So instead of it being, well, they're younger than me. Correct, they're younger than me and I have more experience, so I should be able to make this happen, right? So I think you can't, at least for me, I can't stop the thought. The thought is always going to be there, at least for me, like that. My brain is going to be like, girl, what? But then transferring that into something else and transferring it to positive energy. And then another thing, at least for my generation, there is this kind of online trend with women, young women, and the trend is, they call it being delusional. And it's not in like a crazy way, but in a, you need to build your dream life and have the delusion that you can have everything that you want. Obviously, that's not necessarily how life is going to work out, but sometimes we have to either make the sacrifice or make the decision to live in this quote unquote delusional world. So maybe you have a way that you want to be seen in the world. Like, you know, we all have that image of us in the perfect outfit, going to the right event at the right time. And that's just who you want to be all the time. And we know we can't quite get there because sometimes you want to put on sweatpants. But if that also means that you're dressed head to toe at the grocery store, that's your delusion, but at least allows you to walk in what you want to look like, right? So again, I'm all about practicality. So if you feel like you need to live in your delusion for a day, if you choose your off day and you're gonna get the green juice and go to yoga, even though you've never been to yoga before, but you've always wanted to go, and you're gonna go read a book by the fireplace, even though you know you got stuff to do, make those choices and decisions for yourself. Because once you figure out how you can do it, it makes it easier to do it more in the future.
So I think Taylor has certainly given some methods of dealing with those thoughts that are going on in your head. And I'll move on then to how do we deal with those negative thoughts, defeated, musings, things that are going on in your head. One is, of course, by affirmations. Those affirmations, wherever you get them from, or of course, I like to stick with the biblical affirmations or scriptures. And I jotted down just a couple here, just understanding. So it's something else Taylor said, just to keep in mind when she says the comparison basically can motivate you, is what she was saying. Because if someone else has done it, then surely I can do it. That's sort of a motivation. But I think something, and I talk about this in edit in the very beginning, is understanding your worth. Your worth, your value is equal to anybody else in this world. No one has more worth or more value than you. So I don't care what someone else is doing on you see on social media or here and there. It doesn't diminish you. And we call those things externals. Once you understand who you are at the core of who you are, that's your base. And the core of who we are as believers is Jesus Christ. We are children of God as our core. And as our core, we are all on an equal playing field. When we accept Jesus, when just by our nature of being here in this earth, created the way God created us, we all have equal value, equal worth, regardless of the external things, money, fame, job, looks, beauty, all of those things are externals. But understand that you are just as good as, there is no as, it's just the level playing field. So that's one of the first things. If that's not resonating in your head as true, then you need to get that resonating as truth, that I am as good as, of equal value and of equal worth as anyone else. I don't care of hierarchy, boss, whatever. I am of equal value and equal worth. We may have different jobs. Our externals may be different and circumstances may be different, but I am of equal value. And then when I throw in that I'm a child of God on top of that, that just heats things up even more, because then that's where my confidence is. That's where my understanding my worth and my value and my power. We have that power by understanding who we are at the core. And scripture tells us time and time again and explains to us our powers. When it comes to this self-talk and defeating talks, defeating words, there are a couple of scriptures that I just wanted to point out here. One, for those, I think most folk here are used to being in church, death and life are in the power of the tongue. We hear it all the time. It is so true. So it's whatever you speak, whatever you affirm, whether you write it down with journaling, if there's that, or to Taylor's point, if she can't write down or do that personal visioning, whatever works for you, death and life, power of the tongue, whether you're writing it down, whether you're thinking it, wherever your heart is, which leads me to the next scripture. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Whatever you're thinking, Katie, when you stay in that that jumbled, continual string of thinking, it, as I said before, it sort of paralyzes you and immobilizes you. You haven't set a goal, put it out there, set a goal and work towards it. If you don't do that, it's just going to stay in your head and stay jumbled, and you're going to keep, and you know what? The enemy does not want you to achieve the things that you know that God has called you to do. And let that be the motivation as well, is that some of you who talk to me often, I do not want to leave anything undone because the enemy has stole that from me or has attempted to blind me and keep me from doing what God has called me to do. So and I'm going to just say, you know, in couple, and Jay, I'll get your hand in a second. I think there are those couple of stages, right? One, do you have an awareness of negative self-talk or whatever it is? You may first got to understand whether you have that awareness, how that is impacting your behavior, because it does. However you think, however you believe, all of those things are impacting your behavior, what you do. So then whatever it is that God has called you to do or that you're trying to accomplish, somewhere there is a connection or lack thereof between what you're thinking and what God has called you to do. This is impacting here. And so you have to make sure that you have that clear path or that alignment between what you're thinking and whatever it is that you're doing. Because to Katie's example, she has in mind what it is God has called her to do, but there's not a clear path right now. It's all jumbled up. So how do you then open that up? Again, personal visioning, life visioning, journaling, if you can journal, get it out. Changing then those negative self-talks through affirmations, through scripture. There are a couple other tools that I use in coaching that sort of helps you to identify those negative patterns of thinking, and sort of helps you change that behavior over time. Jay, you have your hand up for you. I keep going and we're about to run out of time.
Yeah, I was quickly just, when I said, I think some of the, also the things that have helped, um, me is, or maybe asking Katie the question, who, um, who's your circle of encouragement? Um, because I think anyone that knows me knows that Sabrina is that for me. But I know a lot of times when I'm not feeling my best self, and every time we drop our daycare kids off, I tell them the same thing every morning: be great today. And be great today is just not so much of have a good day, but be your best you. And there are times when I don't feel I'm my best, and I'll text Sabrina and say, like, my mind is going, or I'm in my head, and there, she can help me tease that apart. I'm also in therapy, and if I feel like there are 10 things that I need to do, but it doesn't feel like there's no any time to do it, Laura will ask me, well, what are the things you can do in that? Well, reality, life is on life, and that's just real. Whether you're taking care of family, second time around with kids, or businesses, whatever. Life just be lifing at times, and it gets real. But within that, what is it that I can do? And I think now that I'm even saying that for myself, I'm realizing from what I had previously said about, comparing myself, if really the things that I'm able to do, am I doing those things? And if not, what is it that I can do in that? And I think that's where we can give ourselves, some grace and say, hey, the right now I can't build the business that I want to, but do I have time to maybe look up some business proposals, or where I can get some, just anything that is feasible that you can then apply to the big picture. But definitely having someone around that can help you tease that out, and say what is going on, and helping you kind of navigate in that.
Yeah, I think, thanks for that, Jay. I think one thing that we always say, and it comes in this whole space of lies, labels, and limiting beliefs, is that I think we said it in the self-test: I don't have enough time to do what I need to do. Well, again, because we know life is going to happen, what can you do? Well, you can, at the beginning of the day or the beginning of the week, prioritize what is the most important for that day. Because we know that whenever we can at least get those top 2 things done, you might have a list of 10, but if you can get the top 2 things done in that day, you will feel somewhat accomplished, and then you'll keep building on that. But we have a tendency to want to do the easy things, and the harder things wait, and then it keeps building and snowballing and snowballing. But instead, we got to flip that around and say, well, to Jay's point, what can I do? What are the priorities, the top 2 priorities that I can do for today? The last scripture I wanted to bring out to mention is, guard your heart with all diligence, because from out of it flows the issues of life. So whatever it is that's going in your head, that goes back to Jay's point too. Who's around you? Who's talking to you? Who's feeding and encouraging your self-talk? What are you doing? Because for sure, whatever is going in you, in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit, in your ears, you are going to behave in that way. And I don't know about you, I can try and be available to encourage people as much as I can. But again, for those of you who know me, you got about 2 times to come to me in a real negative way. I might give you 3, but on that 3rd time, we're done with that conversation. I don't do negativity like that. I just don't. That's not to say that I will desert you or abandon you, but after about the 2nd or 3rd conversation, I'm gonna give you time to go get it right, and you think about the things I said the first 2 or 3 times. And then when you come back a little bit later on, I'm happy to talk to you again, but it will not be a continual conversation. from time to time. Because one, you're just not gonna waste my time. If you need help, if you need therapy, I will refer you to a therapist. There are a lot of other people who can do that, but that's just not what I do. Unapologetically, sorry. So, we are down to the end. Who is that laughing? I don't know who that is.
Giovanna.
We are down to the end of the time. I wish we had more. I knew this was going to be longer because I've got pages and pages of stuff, additional things. So here's what I want to do, because I want to be mindful of everybody's time. Because there are so many additional. So let me just ask this question first before we go. And you put it in the chat or however you want to. Are people realizing or seeing or able to identify either the negative thinking, negative self-talk, or things that you feel like you need to deal with, or you know it's hindering you, is limiting you in some way? If so, just put it in the chat because it's one thing too to realize the limiting beliefs and negative self-talk, but it's then something else to do something about it. Because some people just happy-go-lucky. Yeah, this is where I think, but I'm not gonna, I don't feel like doing the work required to make this change or to make this shift. But when you got something that you really know that God has called you to do or that you want to accomplish, we got to be mindful of the lies, the labels, and negative self-talk. And I'll say in edit, we spend that whole portion. So for those who don't know, EDIT stands for expose, dispel, impart, and thrive. And several folk on the phone have done EDIT. A couple of folk on the phone have done EDIT already. And some have done it multiple times because it may take multiple times for you to deal with different things. But we spend the whole expose 2 weeks on just thinking through and exposing lies and labels and negative thinking and asking yourselves, where did it come from? Because we do want to get to the root of it and be able to say, okay, well, it came from here. So then how do I change that? How do I dispel that lie and that label? And then what is the new knowledge? Because that's what EDIT is, expose, then we dispel, then we impart new knowledge, and then we talk about what thriving looks like and how do we go forward. And for those who did it before, EDIT has been revised and updated. This is the wrong side. This is a new EDIT version. And I do plan to do one of those, start another session. For those who don't know, it's an 8-week program. And we meet once a week for 8 weeks. Again, there are folk on the phone who have done it. And they are—
I do a plug for it real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did it twice. And each one that I had to expose have how it has impacted my life, and being able to thrive has been like absolutely amazing. That first time I wasn't quite sure how it was gonna be, but I knew that I needed to do it a second time to really grasp it. And I highly, highly recommend people doing EDIT, especially after being on this and recognizing that lie, exposing that lie. And when you get to the end of it, the thriving is amazing. And I'm so glad that I did it.
And thank you for that plug. And I will say, when we talk about exposing lies and labels, it's not just like goals or not reaching goals. It could be around your self-esteem, something that is hindering you because somebody when you were 6 told you you weren't ever going to be anything, and that stuck with you, and you have to trace how that has impacted your thinking or limited you in believing what you can do and what you can't do. And again, in EDIT, we talk about that through the whole expose. Who are you? What have other people said about you? And it sort of takes you through the whole process. Again, it's 8 o'clock. My question, would you all like to continue with this on another session? Okay. You want to wait a month, or you want to like do it, just catch up again in about maybe 2 weeks?
I'm gonna say for me, catch up in 2 weeks because I'm gonna be on vacation for 2 weeks and I would hate to miss it. So
Okay,
I go on vacation on the 14th and I won't be back until like the 29th. So I won't have access. I'm not taking a computer. I'm not taking anything, but I would still like to continue this because it's been enlightening. Thank you, Jay.
okay.
So it's been real enlightening.
All right, it sounds like, so I will set another date in 2 weeks and send it out to the whole group. And this recording will be on the YouTube channel, which means I'll still have the normal, because Let's Talk About It is once a month. And yeah, so I want to make sure we continue with this and get to some real practical ways to deal with the lies, labels, and limiting beliefs. For those who were on the call last month, I don't know that I see many people. We had our t-shirts. So last month's session was Jesus, Therapy, and Coaching. We had t-shirts that day, and someone wanted a t-shirt. I don't think that person is on the phone, but if anyone's interested in any of the t-shirts that we have, let me know, and please just send me an email. And I think that was all I needed. Any final thoughts, questions, comments?
They're coaching.
Sabrina, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
This is Bernice. I want to thank you for tonight's lesson. I was having a mini conversation, I thought, but it really was God talking with me today and really revealing just this where I got stuck and actually showing me why I got stuck. And this has been just really a confirmation of everything that I received from him. So thank you so very, very much for this lesson. And thank you for continuing it.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for coming. Jay, you're gonna say?
Just about your coaching, I saw.
Oh yeah, so yeah. Call me if you need or interested in one-on-one coaching. By all means, I say last time, the first session is always free. It's certainly very confidential. We do a complimentary first session. And then we can decide after that if you want to continue on with those sessions. So either send me an email, DM me if you're interested. At least I always say you ought to at least take advantage of the first session, if nothing else.
Can
All
we
right.
sit on the couch?
Well, you can sit on the virtual couch since you're in Virginia. Sure you can.
Do I qualify for another one?
No.
All right.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Giovanna, good to see you. I'm glad you had a chance to join.
Yes, thank you. I enjoyed you guys.
All right. You guys take care, and I will look for an email from me about the next 2 weeks. All right. Y'all take care.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thank you. Bye.